outlaw motorcycle clubs, notorious, ruthless, ever-present thorn in the side of law enforcement for decades. These one-percenters, a self-proclaimed elite separate from the law-abiding masses, navigate a world of rumbling engines, criminal enterprises, and unwavering loyalty. On the West Coast, two names dominate the asphalt jungle: the Vagos and the Hells Angels. Their rivalry burns like a high-octane fire, scorching the landscape with violence and defiance. Before we dive into the hottest moments of this biker brawl, let's dissect the origins and symbols of these iron-fisted clubs. Development. The Vagos roared onto the California scene in the early 1960s, starting in San Bernardino. This group of riders, led by Rudy Esparza, wanted their corner of the biker world, maybe even challenging the big dogs like the Hells Angels. They sported green colors, reflecting their Mexican heritage, and grew fast. By the 1970s, they were over 100 strong. Life was not all sunshine for the Vagos, though. Trouble with the law followed them, and many members faced charges. But they were tough, and by the early 2000s, they were still around. That's when things got rough again. Law enforcement cracked down hard, arresting Vagos members left and right. The club took a hit, but they never disappeared. Today, they are still out there, but with a watchful eye from the police, and their rivals keeping them company. As for the Hells Angels, well, that's a whole different story. These guys are legends, many would say downright scary. Founded in 1948 in Fontana, California, they were all about bikes and brotherhood, but with a wild side. Their outlaw image stuck, making them famous, or more accurately, infamous, in the biker world. The Hells Angels spread like wildfire, growing new chapters all over. They faced heat from the law and had their share of problems within the club, but they're still a major force. Their reputation for being tough and sticking together has made them one of the most feared and respected MCs around. But how did these two notorious biker gangs come face to face? Before we go full throttle and hit the open highway with this story, do take a moment to like and subscribe so that we could bring you more tales of outlaw MCs. Vagos versus Hells Angels, California's fierce rivalry. The asphalt jungle roared to life in the turbulent mid-60s. Vietnam vets, fresh out of the chaos of war, craved a new kind of brotherhood. Iron horses and open roads beckoned, and the Hells Angels, notorious and fast-growing, answered the call. From San Francisco to Vegas, chapters sprouted like desert flowers, offering a twisted solace to these restless souls. But not everyone wanted to wear the Angels' crimson. In San Bernardino, 1965, 13 disillusioned riders huddled on a dusty corner. At 8th and Davidson, here, Rudy Esparza, a man with a vision as sharp as a chrome cleaver, proposed a new breed, a club that wouldn't back down and wouldn't be messed with. The Hells Angels cast a long shadow, especially in SoCal, but the Vagos craved their slice of dominance. They christened themselves Vagos, Spanish for wanderer, a name reflecting their desire for endless journeys. Green, the color of their Mexican heritage, became their battle flag. The years that followed saw the Vagos swell in numbers, hitting 100 strong, but growth often attracts trouble. By the 70s, prison bars held dozens of Vagos, their wild ways catching up with them. They were carving out a space in the biker landscape, and their reputation, some might say, surpassed even the Angels in brutality. But that's a story for another gear shift. Let us fast forward to a pivotal moment, May of 1974, an event that would forever alter the course of the West Coast biker war. Albuquerque, New Mexico. The sun was beating down like a hammer on an anvil. The Vagos roll in, 5 tattooed figures on rumbling steeds. They're just passing through, a pit stop on their westward trek, a few drinks and some shut-eye in a dusty Route 66 motel. Just another Friday night. Beers at a college bar across from UNM, a few laughs, then back to the motel for some sleep. They aim to be in Phoenix by sunset. Fast forward, Los Angeles. The Vagos meet up with some friends, only to be greeted with grim news. Plastered across every newspaper are their faces on the FBI's most wanted. Confusion clouds their vision. Turns out they're accused of taking the life of a UNM student. There was no evidence, just a coincidence of their arrival and his disappearance. Easy prey for a desperate police force. Thrown into solitary confinement, each Vago faces the psychological warfare of an undercover informant. 4 yields nothing, but 1 whispers a confession, a fabricated story fueled by who knows what. Recording devices weren't standard back then, so the cops took his word as gospel. 5 innocent men, 5 death row sentences. This was the brutal baptism by fire that thrust the Vagos onto the national scene, a stark reminder of the Wild West justice that still simmered beneath the veneer of a modern world. Their fight for survival, their battle against the corrupt system, that's a story waiting to be told. Injustice was scorching hotter than the New Mexico sun. Turns out, the informant's confession was a cruel mirage, a web of lies that crumbled in January of 1976. The truth finally surfaced when Rodney Lee, the real culprit, racked with guilt, confessed to the murder. After 36 agonizing months, the Vagos walked free, the taste of freedom bittersweet after facing death for a crime they didn't commit. The ordeal, however, couldn't extinguish the Vagos' fire. They emerged stronger, their ranks swelling beyond their Mexican-American roots. Their numbers boomed, and so did their hustle. These weren't just weekend riders anymore. They were businessmen on 2 wheels, their motorcycles cleverly disguised as mobile drug vaults. Nobody suspected a thing. The Vagos cruised across the country, their pockets lined with ill-gotten gains, and years of smooth sailing stretched before them. But fate, as they say, has a wicked sense of humor. This golden age wouldn't last forever. The year 2001 marked a screeching halt to their lucrative enterprise. Buckle up because this is where things get interesting. Django Unchained. Meet Charles Falco, a seasoned criminal with a knack for the finer points of, well, let's just say he was a master of the blue sky business. 2001 wasn't kind to Charles. A DEA raid on his Los Angeles digs left him facing a lifetime vacation behind bars, his ill-gotten millions confiscated. But the feds weren't after small fry, they craved bigger fish. Organizations like the Hells Angels, or you guessed it, the Vagos. They offered Charles a Faustian bargain, freedom for a dangerous mission. Infiltrate the Vagos, become their confidant, and spill their secrets. The ATF had been circling the Vagos for years, their walls of silence impenetrable. Charles, desperate and with nothing to lose, jumped at the chance. 3 years. That's the deadline the ATF hung over his head. Get intel or face life in prison. Victorville, California, 40 minutes north of San Bernardino, a dusty wasteland where hope goes to die. This was Charles' new stomping ground, a Vagos stronghold anchored by a notorious bar on D Street. Fall 2001, Charles, a wolf in sheep's clothing, walks into a bar, a calculated gamble on his lips. He spins a yarn about a loyal Vago who watched his back in prison, a complete fabrication of course. The Vagos lapped it up and a bond began to form. By 2002, Charles Falco, alias Quick, became a full-fledged member of the Victorville Vagos chapter. Meanwhile, an hour south, another story was unfolding, but that's a tale for another gear shift. Let's just say, the rivalry between the Vagos and their arch-nemesis, the Hells Angels, was about to take a dramatic turn. Now meet George Rowe, a tough-as-nails blue-collar worker from Hemet, another scorching desert town. Summer 2003, George loses his best friend, allegedly at the hands of the Vagos. A pool hall brawl ignites the fire. His friend vanishes days later. Vengeful, but playing it smart, George bypasses a fistfight and approaches the FBI. Same deal. Infiltrate the Vagos, become their confidant, and spill their secrets. Just like Charles Falco, George dives in, rising fast within the ranks. By 2006, both men are second in command in their chapters, all the while wired for sound. Charles, focused solely on freedom, couldn't care less about the biker life. But George? Some say he grew a taste for it, hosting meetings at his house, and even finding a wife who loved the bad boy biker image. But bliss wouldn't last. March 9th, 2006, 6 a.m. George wakes his wife with a confession. He's been 3 years undercover. A massive raid was planned for that day. The ultimatum? Join him in witness protection or disappear into your own life. History remains silent on her choice. Operation 22 Green, a coordinated sweep across Southern California, saw 62 Vagos arrested. It was a landmark takedown, scorching the biker landscape forever. Membership became fiercely guarded. No one wanted another undercover snake in their midst. Now the gloves were off. The Vagos and the Hells Angels were about to crank their rivalry to a fever pitch. They were really just getting started. Years of enforced quiet simmered into a simmering rage. The Vagos, licking their wounds, planned revenge. California, once neutral ground, became a battleground. For decades, the Vagos and Hells Angels had shared an uneasy truce, mutual respect bordering on distrust. But on January 27, 2010, that fragile peace shattered in Santa Cruz. A stray Vagos chapter rolled into town, deliberately searching for angels. The scene outside a Starbucks erupted into a brawl, a bloody flashpoint that ignited a bitter rivalry. Fast forward to September 23, 2011. Fate, or perhaps bad luck, placed the Vagos and Hells Angels in the same Nevada casino. A chance encounter in the Nugget Casino in Sparks escalated into a violent clash. Caught on camera, the fight cemented the animosity between the two clubs. The gloves came off, and the asphalt was about to get a whole lot hotter. The murder of Jeffrey Pettigrew, a respected Hells Angels leader, sent shockwaves through the biker world. It wasn't just the Vagos they had to worry about. Internal tensions boiled over at Pettigrew's funeral, with a shocking murder within their ranks. For a decade, a fragile peace held, the Angels preoccupied with a larger enemy, the Mongols. But the summer of 2002 reignited the feud. On a remote desert highway, Hells Angels harassed the Vagos memorial ride, culminating in a sickening act of violence. Gunfire on a day meant to honor fallen heroes. But the battle for West Coast dominance continues to this day. Present discords. A May 2002 shooting on a southern Nevada highway involving the Vagos and Hells Angels motorcycle gangs is raising eyebrows. Authorities suspect it wasn't a random act, but rather part of a much larger, ongoing conflict between the two MCs. During the apparent ambush, 7 people were injured, 6 of them Vagos members. A stray bullet even managed to hit a parked car outside a nearby church, highlighting the recklessness of the situation. This incident serves as a stark reminder that the bloody feud between these biker gangs continues to cast a long shadow over the West Coast. Want to learn more about such stories? Then check out this video about the Mongols versus the ATF. Thank you for joining us today. Peace.